A very big thank you to you for joining on this episode. My name is Emmanuel and I am the founder at Nigeria Property Zone, where we have been helping people make secure and profitable real estate investment decisions for the past 4 years within the Lagos, the Dubai and the London real estate markets. And this is our YouTube channel where we discuss everything real estate. If you are new on this channel, please do not forget to subscribe, like, share, comment, and also do click that notification bell so you can be the first to know when we drop valuable real estate content just like the one you are watching in this video. Regardless of efforts made by real estate stakeholders in Lagos, Nigeria to explain what titles we have for properties in Nigeria and procedures for title document perfection, I still keep getting questions from my clients, especially those Nigerians who are in diasporas, questions that are bordering around real estate titles and document perfection. They'll be like, Emmanuel, if I pay now, will I get my CFO immediately? They'll ask you questions like, what document do I get when I pay for this property? Some don't even understand how this CFO thing works, and some will ask you, between CFO and governor's consent, which one is more superior? Also questions like, is it safe to buy a land that have Excision as its title? These questions and more are what we are going to be answering in this week's episode. Just before I start, let me make it known to you that at Nigeria Property Zone, what we do is to help you make secure and profitable real estate investment decisions. We also recommend to you the best of property available within the market. Feel free to contact us directly via any of our contact channels showing on your screen. Now let's get to the business of the day. Firstly, it is highly pertinent that I briefly explain to you the 1978 Land Use Act of Nigeria. This act is the mother of all laws and regulations that governs the operation of real estate within the Nigerian real estate market. It will interest you to know that prior to the 1978 Land Use Act, what was operational was the land tenure system, and there are 3 of these land tenure systems, but more importantly among them is the customary system, which is more active and practicable within Lagos and the western Nigeria. This customary system simply places ownership of land on the traditional head. These traditional head are the people we know in today's world as the Omonile. The Part 1 of the Act took ownership of land from the traditional owners and vested it in the state. Then we can simply say that all land within the state are under the general acquisition of the state government. So then the state will now, from all the land available to it within the state, earmark some part for the purpose of state use, that is construction of state amenities and infrastructures like the government schools, the government hospitals, the government markets, cemetery, and so on and so forth. It is from the part which is then regarded or considered as free from government acquisition that the government, upon request, transfer back to the traditional owners and the Omoniles for their village settlement under a concept known as Excision. Simply put, Excision is the transfer of land from the government to the traditional owners for their village settlement. It is from this part that real estate developers now go and buy from and use it to develop estates. This transfer is then further documented in a government record known as the Government Gazette. I've mentioned 2 important land titles. One of them is Excision, which means the land is free and has been transferred from the government to a particular family. Second one is Gazette. It means that that transfer has been recorded in government official record. If you are going to be buying a land that has Excision, what you should be requesting for your due diligence is the Excision file number. Whilst if you are going to be buying a land that has Gazette as a title, what you should be requesting for is the Gazette volume number. It is very much safe to buy a land that has Excision as its title or Gazette as its title. When a land has Gazette, then you can easily buy and then easily go and process a C of O, that is the certificate of occupancy on that property. A land that has not been excised, that has not been gazetted, may prove difficult for you to get a C of O on it. C of O can either be global or specific. When you hear anything like global C of O, what it simply means is that that C of O is covering a large chunk of land, perhaps like a village or maybe several hectares or an estate. That is what a global C of O covers. But a specific C of O only covers a particular plot or very few plots belonging to one individual. So what then is governor's consent? I will simply explain using an analogy. James bought land from Ruth. The land has Gazette as its title. James collected deed of assignment from Ruth, did a survey on his land, got some other necessary document, and then proceeded to Alausa for document perfection. When James got to Alausa, they checked and saw that the land already has Gazette. James was able to file for a CFO on that land. CFO is only giving one for every piece of land. The CFO can never be two on any land. We now have Peter, who came to James and wants to buy the land from James. Peter and James agreed at a price, and Peter bought the land from James. And of course, Peter will receive that CFO from James. And also, a deed of assignment will be executed by James to Peter. And Peter will proceed to the same Alausa and inform the government and say, okay, government, CFO XYZ that you initially issued to James is now in my possession. I have bought the land from James. Here are my evidence. Here are my documents. The government will validate these things, and the government will now consent to that transfer by issuing a stamp on the deed of the assignment, meaning that today we consent to the transfer of property XYZ with CFO ABC that has been now transferred from James to Peter, and that is where governor's consent comes in. So governor's consent is applicable when a land or a property that have an existing CFO is changing hands. Even if it's changing hands 100 times, we are going to have 100 different governors' consent. One other instrument you may come across, or you may have come across in some videos as a title in real estate in the Nigerian sphere, is the court judgment or the Supreme Court judgment. But the truth is that court judgment is more of an instrument that proves ownership instead of title. And it's only applicable where you have a property that have been through litigation and a court of appropriate jurisdiction have issued a judgment on that property. So court judgment on its own is not a title until it is registered. And if it's going to be registered, it will need to be linked to a root title, which is a CFO. And when that is done, what you're now going to get on your court judgment is the governor's consent. Is it possible to get a CFO on a land that does not have excision at all? This is a very dicey one, but the truth is that it is very, very possible. And how can this happen? Now, when you are buying a land directly from the government, you can have what is called the government allocation, or the government allocated C of O. So in that case, your deed of assignment becomes that government allocation, and following that is straight to C of O. So it only happens when you are buying, let's say, from a government housing scheme. For example, the DERA scheme where we have one of our estate which is currently selling. If you buy a property in such kind of a scheme, it is straight to an authentic CFO issued directly to you by the state government. So it is very much possible to have a CFO on a land that doesn't have an existing excision if you are buying directly from the government. Another possible instance where I have seen land that does not have an excision got CFO directly is under a concept known as ratification, and it simply plays out where you have this particular community, no exception, people have been living there for the past 20 years, 25 years, or 30 years. The government has decided to come and plan that environment. So once the government comes, the government will first of all look at their master plan and check which part of this community has been earmarked for state use. Properties on such parts which are under the committed acquisition are going to be demolished, and the owners of such properties are not going to be compensated because they will be considered as land grabbers, meaning that they are illegally occupying government land. Whilst the properties which are on the other part of the land that are free from government acquisition, they can now enter a negotiation with the owners and ask them to come and pay certain amount of money, and then they are going to now give them title on that property, either it's your force or governor's consent directly. So that process is called ratification. Anytime, any day, you can never go wrong with buying a property that have either a CFO or a governor's consent as its title. But also, you can be rest assured that you are making a very safe investment if the property you are buying have either an excision that you can verify or a gazette as their title. Because of how cheap properties that have excision in process or a freehold may be, you still find some people buying this kind of property. Dear investor and potential investors, excision in process and freehold are not real estate titles in Nigeria according to the 1978 Land Use Act. So be very, very much careful when you are buying a land that is not excised, because you hear people can come and tell you this land is having excision in progress as a title. That is very, very, very dicey and risky. It simply means that the land is not yet excised. It therefore also means that they are just in the process of getting excision on that property, and that is a 50-50 chance, because it's possible that property might get an excision and it's possible that property may not get that excision. If you are about making a decision to buy a property that doesn't have at least an excision as its title, please be very much careful. Try to ensure that you are buying from a real estate company that is highly reputable. Try to see that you are dealing with an agent or a realtor that is very dependable and not just one who is trying to lure you into buying just because he needs to earn certain commission. Be careful enough to ask for the excision file number so you can at least check to see how true they are with what they've said in terms of they are trying to get the title. And also try to go there with a very good surveyor so he can pick the coordinate of that particular estate, and so he can chart that coordinate to see if there is any committed acquisition on that land. Because if there is any committed acquisition on that particular estate that you are buying from, I can tell you for free that you will never get a decision on that property. It means that investment is a futile one. But of course, if the property is not having any committed acquisition, then you now stand a 50% chance of getting acquisition on that property, not 100% chance. Remember, I said that it is a 50-50 thing. Another thing that you are going to want to ensure you do well is to ask that what zoning do you have in that particular community where that land is. So people might tell you that this area you can build your residential house. Meanwhile, in the true sense of it, that area is under agricultural zoning. It therefore means that you cannot live there. You can only farm there. So that will be all on this week's episode. My goal is to see that I get you informed and put you in a better position to negotiate, so you don't have to be paying, for example, the price of a C or 4 residential land for the price of a farmland. I'm going to do a separate video that will explain the important checks you need to do when carrying out a due diligence on the property you intend to buy, depending on the title of that property. Do not forget to subscribe, like, share, and also do click that notification bell so you can be the first to know when we drop valuable real estate pictures like the one you've watched in this video.